We have several holidays during the year, and each one of those holidays, first of all, they are a gift for all of the people or the celebration of life that we have around the holidays, the people that we honor, the Christ that we serve. An unofficial holiday is Valentine's Day, is it not? Is it not? I mean, you think back all the way to elementary school when the little boys, or I suppose in this day and age, the little girls would pass notes to one another. And these notes would say, "Will you be my Valentine?" You remember the heart-shaped candy too? That would come with it, and the candy that's rolled up in the wrapper. What do we call those things? In any event, Valentine's Day is upon us. Listen, this is Anne Marie, host of About This Life. About This Life is a podcast that we normally have guests, quite honestly. I'm here solo this time around. We take a look at some of the issues that come out of life, some of the things that we were challenged with, and we look at what do we believe about them? What do we need to change? What do we need to let go of? How do we move on? How do we evolve? How do we change? How do we grow? All of the things, okay? But before I get into Valentine's Day, I want to ask you this question, and that is, how are you doing? How are you doing? We are amidst a sense of chaos and confusion. And, one of the things that I've been thinking about as, I've been praying and fasting with my church. And think about how can I go on and continue with a podcast as though life is normal? Life is not normal by any means. And that's just the thing because there are just these forces that would want us to stop. I have found that one has to be steadfast and you have to ground yourself, literally, like just ground yourself in terms of who you are, your identity, what you believe, what your values are, uh, what supports that you need, because everybody sort of has a lane, right? Because there are a lane for people who have the capability to fight. There's a lane for people who have the capability to reassure and nurture and to pray. Everyone has a lane. And so when I ask God, how do you want me to impact? How do you want me to serve? God says, just keep going. Just keep going. So here I am. I'm keeping going on About This Life podcast. So we know there's a lot of hurting people out there, and I hope that listening to my voice and bringing some wisdom, some words of inspiration with this lived experience of mine would be of some service, of some help to you. I keep batting my hair. I have pieces of my hair that's floating across my face. So I keep trying to swipe it out. But I want to get back to this whole idea of Valentine's Day. And I want to get back to it because I want to think about nurturing that heart space that we call our heart. I remember growing up and listening to Al Green. And in fact, I was too young to actually understand all the words that Al Green was singing. But my older brothers and sisters, they would listen to Al Green, Reverend Green at this point. And he had a song. It- what was the song? Sometimes love make you do wrong. How did it go? Sometimes love will make you do right. And then sometimes love will make you do wrong, or does it make you do wrong and then make you do right? In any event, where's the lie? Where's the lie? Love will make you do a plentiful of things. Love will make you do what's beautiful, and love would make you do what's harmful. And so I suppose I'm on here because what's bubbling up for me about love is how to guard your heart. Bible says guard your heart at all times. And I want to talk about guarding your heart just a little bit. First, I came across this quote, and the quote is going to set the pace for just the conversation tonight. And I'm going to read it here so I don't butcher the quote, okay? I came, so some relationships remind us of our power. Woohoo! Some break us open so we can see beyond the mask we've built. Others soften us and then invite us back into our hearts. Some are doorways to a life that's been waiting for us, while others wake us up and return us to the seat of our own soul. Some are only meant to be a bridge to the next chapter, and some become our anchor, the entire story. There's no such thing as the wrong person. Let me rewind that again. There's no such thing as the wrong person, only expectations that make us feel we've failed. Love is your greatest teacher. Some of you are going, no such person as the wrong person. Are you kidding me? Do you know my person? Okay, let's go ahead and unpack this. Let's go ahead and unpack this because there's hope for all of this, for all of us. One of the things that we do is we have these expectations of what love can be. And I'm talking romantic love. I'm being honest here. They're all different kinds of love, parent-child love, of course, not relationships, but friendships. There's all, but we talking about romantic love because that's the ideal, right? At least that's what we've been told. Now, there's some people that are perfectly happy in their singleness. As a woman who's been single, married, and now divorced, we have this fantasy that is fed to us in terms of what love looks like, and we think love could only be but one way. We have let go that limiting belief because we understand now that the appreciation, the fondness, the care, and the nurturing that two people have for one another, how they define that in their roles and their positions, who does what in the home, who's the breadwinner, who contributes, and so on and so forth. All of those things have changed, and it has become one of flux as people come into their identity, come into their own. It's even changed on a societal level when we talk about paternalistic and maternalistic roles. Well, that is true. That is not my intent this evening and my focus. My focus is on the expectations that we expect that king or queen to come into our lives. And some of us are devastated when it does not happen. I'm talking about my friend. I ain't talking about me, okay? So there are some lessons that I think bears witness to as we guard our hearts, because we want to be sure that as we have an openness and a willingness to see love come into our lives, that we also guard our hearts. And the first thing is them red flags. Okay, those red flags, how about, they only call you at a certain time. Those red flags, like they call you every other day, or when you try to reach them, they're not available. Those red flags, like they say to you, oh, baby, you the one, and then you don't hear from them for a week. The ghosting, ooh, I got another one in addition to ghosting, the breadcrumb and they give you little bits of pieces of themselves and they say, oh, you know, baby, you the one, you know, baby, all I do is think about you every day. And you like, sure, right? Because what they are doing is they are engaging with another person. And when that other person catch on to the game, then you're next up, your batter's up. Oh, the games people play. The games people play. So the thing is, in terms of red flags, and I'm curious, why do we ignore red flags? We see the red flags, we feel the red flags in our gut, and then we make them green, 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 when they should be red, 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 red. Why do we do that? Sometimes we do that because we want to believe that we're the ones that are going to change someone. We're the ones that they've been waiting for. And we're the ones that finally they're going to say, you're it, baby. Meanwhile, player over here. Why do we ignore the red flags? We ignore the red flags because we have to believe that we are in a relationship. I'm here to say to you that until two people have a conversation about what their wants, what their needs are, you're not in a relationship, you in a situationship. You are in a situationship just wishing and begging for love. Auntie says, don't do that. Don't do that. Why do we ignore the red flags? Um, can you really be that naive sometimes? Sometimes we don't want to see what's straight in front of us. So we are in denial. I suppose there are times when we are naive because we might be young at heart. If we're not young at age, maybe we're young at heart. And we actually believe in the altruism of people, that what they tell us is the truth until we find out otherwise. So the sage advice that I would give you is look at the red flags. Do not ignore them. They are there. They are there. And they are flags for a reason. And if you can look at the red flags and make decisions from that place, it will save you a lot of time. It will save you a lot of heartache. I'm going to move on, and with those red flags, I want to say that what we tell ourselves really matter. It does matter. The second thing is, what is the source of your attachment? Okay, there are these three different types of attachments, probably more. I can't remember them all. My brain don't have the capacity for all of that anymore. But I know avoidant is one level of attachment. But people, I can say that attachment goes back to something from childhood. So it's important that you know, how did you experience love as a child? That is so important because that attachment manifests itself as an adult. Let me see if I can come up with an example. Attachment styles show up in the way we want to people please. So you don't want to say goodbye to that person because you want to please them. It's like, please stay, please stay. And you do everything that you can to keep them, to hoping and praying that they stay on, that they stay with you. And that's also connected to abandonment, where you were abandoned as a child. And so you don't want somebody to go. So then you make yourself small. You make yourself less than because you just think you're nobody unless somebody's there, which leads us into the next excuse, which is lack of self-worth. You don't understand and perceive your value, and you don't have value for yourself. And so you have value for this person that you perceive that you want to love. And the question is, do you hang on or do you let go? Do you hang on or do you let go? Sometimes we need to let go, even if we don't understand it in the moment. And sometimes the circumstances that are created forces the decision. I have talked to so many people on my podcast who have gone through horrific experiences. I have gone through some poor experiences of my own. And when you come to a place where you understand that you have to let go, it's important that you don't become bitter. You either gonna you have a choice, bitter or better. Let me tell you why we have to let go bitter. We let go bitter because if we ruminate in what was done to us, if we ruminate in all of the pity, if we stay there, we are closing the door to what opportunity and what pure love is to come into our lives. So we forgive not necessarily for the other person. That's a nice perk for them. We forgive. We forgive because it frees us. It frees us. It cuts the strings. It cuts the ties. It allows us to be free. It allows you to be free. Nobody said anything about forgetting, but you forgive. You forgive. And I want to say we serve a God who forgives us of our sins, but you don't want me to go preach a sermon. So if God can forgive me, if God can forgive you, God can surely forgive somebody else. But that's a whole sermon to preach. So the other thing about love is to know your trigger points. It is impossible. It is impossible, I tell you, to avoid triggers. It's impossible because we have no control over other people. And at some time in our life, we are going to be triggered. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be the people in your job, or it could just be parent-child relationships. It could be friendships. Something triggers us. And that trigger is often related to some sort of past trauma that we've experienced in our lives. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes the person doesn't even know they've triggered you. Imagine that. So the question is, if you're triggered, if your heart is triggered, what do? You have to have a toolkit. You have to have some sort of resources, some sort of go-to mechanism where you can say to yourself, this is how I'm going to handle the situation. Examples of that is I might say to myself, just breathe. Anne Marie, just breathe. While they talking to me, I'm just breathing. I'm just breathing. And breathing is what's calming my nervous system down so that I don't say things that I later on regret. In addition to just breathing, in terms of one's triggers, sometimes you have to remove yourself from the situation because once you can remove yourself from the situation, from the heat of what you're feeling, you're giving your body permission to calm down. So triggers are going to happen Be sure that you have a toolkit. Lesson number three. I want to talk about rejection. Mm-mm-mm. If you breathe, you've been rejected. Okay, if you're human, you've been rejected. You might have filled out a job application, didn't get the job. That's rejection. You may have applied for the raise and didn't get the raise. That's rejection. You might have told your crush how much you love him or how much you love her, and they did not return their feelings of affection in the same manner. That is rejection. That's the one that burns. So what did Usher say? Let it burn, let it burn, let it burn. That's the one that burns. How do you deal with rejection? So I've got three things for you. I kind of like the number three. Okay. Three things for you. And I'm talking about rejection. How about rejection in a relationship or a situationship? You know what I mean? Avoid self-pity. We far too often tend to say, why me or why not me? And we say to ourselves, and we ask ourselves, weren't we good enough? Didn't we do enough? Stop that. Stop that. It doesn't work. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It does not work. They are gone about their merry lives while you are about there in your self-pity, screaming and hollering. Stop that. Self-pity does not work. And listen, here's why it doesn't work. Never, ever chase someone who doesn't care about you. Never, ever chase someone who doesn't value you. Never, ever chase someone who does not want to be caught. Don't chase them. Don't chase them. All it does is lower your value, not just in their eyes, but lower your value in your own eyes, that you would be so willing to grovel for someone's affection. Hold your head up, square your shoulders, walk on. So avoid self-pity at all costs. The other thing that I want to say is heal. Heal. And we heal by setting boundaries. I have some resources for you. Here are my resources. John Townsend and Henry Cloud, they wrote a book called Boundaries. In fact, they turned it into a whole series, but I'm going back to the original book. Oh, it must be 20, 30 years ago. Game changer, life saving. It will change your life. Boundaries is all about the fact that we need boundaries in our life, and that's how we show ourselves self-love. I have some boundaries. And that is protection for your heart. And in this book, Boundaries, they show you in terms of personalities and how people come to be the way they are. You might even find some traits in terms of, oh, he's like that, or she's like that, or maybe I'm like this, and you're like this. So Boundaries has the deets. It has the details that you need to understand the different levels of personalities that are out there. So when you engage with some sense of knowledge. Fast forward to modern day. Oh my goodness, I am a fangirl. I am a fangirl of Dr. Thamer Bryant. I had the opportunity to meet her at my church where um she was preaching for that day. Dr. Thamer Bryant, she is the author, psychologist, author, speaker, spiritual guide. She is all the things, okay? And Dr. Thamer Bryant wrote few books, and oh, one of them is Homecoming. And homecoming happened to be the subject of a book study that I had for my online group called Becoming Enough. And in homecoming, she talks about being disconnected from self. Woo! Somebody need to give a shout right there. Disconnected from yourself. Now, that's some deep stuff. When you are disconnected from your authenticity, when you are disconnected from your identity. And so in her book, she explains the reason why we become disconnected. And because she is the true healer that she is, she offers some ideas, some steps to take in terms of our healing practices, spiritual practices, so that we can reset and connect back to our heart. She recently released another book. Oh my goodness, released it on my birthday. And her other book is What Matters of the Heart. And so I have, of course, have that in my library and I'm ready to dig into it. Matters of the Heart. For the guys, if you're still listening, thank you, because I know you listening to this podcast and you say, okay, that's for the women. Okay, well, you have women in your life. You know, you have maybe sisters, moms, daughters, so on and so forth. But for the guys, I haven't forgotten you. I have three resources for you. How about that? Not one, not two, but three. First one, David Burris. Burrus, David Burris. I had the pleasure of being coached by David Burris back during the pandemic all those years ago. And he taught us how to be our whole self, show up as our whole self from a biblical point of view. The man is fire. And in today's world, he is also doing an academy for men because men, we recognize and realize that you have some wounds too. It's not just the women. Men, you have some wounds, and we would love for you to deal with your wounds. Quite honestly, go ahead and go take care of yourself. You go Google David Burris and get in his camp and listen to what he has to say. Another, I can't mention David without mentioning Jamal. I want to say Jamal Moore and his wife Natasha. The One University. The One University is what leads you and helps you to understand who truly, when you're looking for the one or want to be found by the one, they guide they guide you through that. And I had the privilege of going through what they had to teach. And the third one, I just came across him recently is Jason Wilson. Jason Wilson has a message for men. I believe he has a new book out too, Comprehensive Man. And he has 10 pillars of the comprehensive man. As man as protector, man as provider. You know, those things, those stereotypes, he redefines them for you and helps you with changing your mindset so you can feel like a man. And of course, he has 8 more pillars to share with you. So go check him out. So those are the resources in terms of heal. So avoid self-pity. Don't pity yourself. Don't chase after anybody. Second one is go get your healing. And the third one is love yourself. Go find your joy. Go find your joy. What makes you happy? What would you do? Oh my gosh, what would you do 24/7 if you could? What brings a smile to your face? What lights you up? What is as easy and comes as natural to you as breathing? And you just want to be someone who continues to do that. That is what is going to give you life. That is what it's going to bring the vitality back to you should your heart ever be broken. I'm just saying, just trust me. And what I would like to do is to end. I would like to end by saying this quote once again, because maybe it hits you just a little differently now that we've gone through all of these things in terms of our heart, our love. So let me begin. Some relationships remind us of our power. Some break us open. so we can see beyond the mask we've built. Others soften us and invite us back into our hearts. Some are doorways to a life that's been waiting for us, while others wake us up and return us to the seat of our own soul. Some are only meant to be a bridge to the next chapter, and some become our anchor for the entire story. There's no such thing as the wrong person, only expectations that make us feel we failed. Love is our greatest teacher. Beloved, beloved, God is love. And indeed, love is our greatest teacher. When we can have the boundaries that we need, when we can look for the red flags and all the other things that I said, we position ourselves in a posture to be vessels of love and to have our love so overflow into others. And that is what makes the world a better place. Finally, I will say to you, beloved, you are enough. Anne Marie, host About This Life podcast, where we are changing our lives one day at a time. Be well, beloved. Be well. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.